In certain seasons, your name begins to move in rooms your feet have never entered, and nothing on the surface explains why. You feel the same, you dress the same, you walk through the same streets, yet somewhere beyond your direct sight, you have shifted categories. You are no longer being viewed as background, as passing presence, as someone the system can overlook without consequence. Quietly, you have become a variable that must be considered. That is what it means, symbolically, when the second chair of power leans toward the higher seat and says, "Watch this one." It is not flattery. It is classification. Those who sit close to influence are not impressed by noise. They are not moved by performance. They have seen gifted, loud, charismatic personalities come and go in cycles. What arrests their attention is something rarer: steadiness that does not crumble under delayed recognition, clarity that does not require applause to stay intact, integrity that does not bargain when shortcuts appear. You have been carrying these traits without a stage, and while it felt like silence to you, it was data to them. Every environment you survived, every contradiction you held without betrayal, every time you stayed aligned when misunderstanding would have justified quitting, the pattern of you was being recorded. This recommendation, this internal nod in your direction, is not about favoritism. It is the natural outcome of accurate observation. Over time, it became too costly for the system not to acknowledge you. To keep treating you like you were ordinary would mean designing structures that ignore a stabilizing force standing in plain sight. So the quiet conversation begins. The question is no longer, "Who is this?" The question has become, "Where do we place this one so their presence strengthens rather than goes to waste?" Your true worth is being seen not as decoration, but as infrastructure. You may not receive a dramatic message or a visible invitation. The shift will rarely arrive as a trumpet. It arrives instead as pathways that stop resisting you. Doors that once remained stuck at half open no longer require you to push with the same force. People who used to treat your insight as optional begin to instinctively pause when you speak. There will be no announcement telling you, "You have been elevated." You will simply notice that your no carries more weight, your yes travels further, and your silence is interpreted as signal rather than absence. This is not the moment to inflate yourself, but it is also not the moment to shrink. False humility is as misaligned as arrogance. You are not better than anyone, but you are no longer hidden from the structure that once misread you. Your task now is simple and demanding at the same time. Remain exactly as you were when no one seemed to notice. The same balance, the same internal honesty, the same refusal to twist yourself for convenience. The recommendation did not create your value, it only confirmed it. Standing in this truth without noise is the first proof that you are ready to carry what comes next. Do not underestimate the significance of being quietly trusted. Loud recognition can be withdrawn as quickly as it appears, because it is rooted in emotion and trend. Quiet trust is different. It is built like stone, layer by layer, through unglamorous moments no one will ever post about. You have been observed in those moments, when you chose restraint instead of retaliation, when you held your center while others scattered, when you protected what was right even when it cost you comfort. These are not small details. They are the exact reasons your name could be spoken as an answer inside a discussion you were never invited to hear. In that sense, you are not being given a chance now. You are being recognized as necessary. The space ahead of you is not a favor. It is a rightful alignment between who you are and where your presence quietly upgrades the entire field around you. Once recognition stabilizes, The environment begins to adjust itself around you without asking for permission. This is the stage most people misread because it does not look like reward. It looks like distance. Certain interactions soften. Certain voices fade. Certain expectations quietly fall away. This is not rejection. It is recalibration. The system stops testing you because it no longer needs proof. It begins instead to reorganize variables so your presence fits without friction. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull? Tap join to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership. It's your calling. You may notice that situations which once demanded explanation no longer require it. You are not asked to defend your thinking, justify your timing, or translate your decisions. That is not indifference. It is trust becoming operational. When trust forms at this level, scrutiny decreases, but consequence increases. Every movement now carries more weight because fewer checks are placed in front of you. This is why the phase feels subtle yet serious. Freedom expands, but so does responsibility. The silence around you may deepen. Conversations move forward without looping back for consensus. Decisions increasingly assume your awareness even when your voice is absent. This can feel unsettling if you were trained to believe visibility equals value. Here, the opposite applies. The less visible you are, the more precisely you are being placed. Visibility is for influence. Placement is for function. And function always precedes authority. You are entering a zone where reactions matter more than ambition. How you handle access, how you manage restraint, how you navigate proximity without entitlement. These are the details being measured now. Not because your worth is questioned, but because alignment must hold under closeness. Many people collapse when doors finally open because their internal posture has not adjusted to the new scale. This phase is quietly preventing that outcome for you. Notice how your internal rhythm is changing. Urgency is dissolving. The pressure to prove is fading. You are no longer responding to the world. You are moving with it. This does not make you passive. It makes you accurate. Accuracy eliminates wasted motion. And wasted motion is what destabilizes systems that carry weight. There may be moments when you feel temporarily removed from contexts that once defined you. Familiar roles dissolve. Old feedback loops stop responding. This is not loss. It is shedding. Structures that cannot scale with you fall away naturally because forcing them would create imbalance. Let them go without narrative. The need to explain endings belongs to earlier levels of awareness. This phase also sharpens discernment. You begin to see where effort is unnecessary, where explanation dilutes impact, where silence preserves leverage. This is not manipulation. It is clarity. When clarity arrives, behavior simplifies. You do not become mysterious. You become exact. What matters now is internal alignment. Not moral alignment, but directional alignment. Are your actions consistent with the capacity that has been recognized? Are you maintaining the same integrity under reduced surveillance? Are you resisting the temptation to accelerate before structure fully settles? These questions answer themselves through consistency, not declaration. You are not being rushed forward. You are being anchored so movement, when it comes, does not displace you. The recalibration happening now is quiet because it must be precise. Loud transitions create crack. Silent ones hold. Remain steady. Remain aware. You are no longer being assessed for entry. You are being positioned for integration. As positioning solidifies, a different weight enters your awareness, not as pressure but as gravity. You begin to feel how presence alone can influence direction. Not through command, not through force, but through steadiness. This is the point where responsibility stops being theoretical. You are no longer preparing in isolation. Your internal state starts shaping external conditions whether you intend it or not. That realization is subtle, but irreversible. In this phase, the system is no longer asking whether you can hold ground. It is observing how you shape it. Influence is not something granted at this level, it is something detected. How people adjust their behavior around you. How decisions account for you without verbal reference. How arguments soften, sharpen, or reroute when you enter the space. These cues matter. They are not random. They are response patterns forming around stability. You might notice that certain offers arrive without enthusiasm attached. No selling. No convincing. Just availability. This is intentional. What is meant for you now does not need persuasion. Persuasion introduces imbalance. What aligns with your position arrives neutral, clear, almost plain. The significance is not in how it looks, but in how little resistance surrounds it. Resistance is a sign of misfit. Ease is a sign of readiness. Your internal dialogue continues to simplify. You spend less time asking what something means and more time noticing whether it belongs. This is refinement, not indecision. Discernment increases when clarity matures. The world does not suddenly make more sense. You simply stop entertaining what was never meant to remain. That pruning can feel lonely if misinterpreted, but it is actually stabilizing your trajectory. There is also a noticeable shift in how time feels. Not faster, but denser. Moments carry more consequence. Conversations feel weighted. Choices linger longer. This is not anxiety. It is proximity to outcome. The closer you are to structural impact, the less disposable decisions become. You begin to act with consideration not because you fear mistakes, but because you recognize scale. You are learning something critical here. Influence does not require motion. Sometimes it requires stillness. The kind of stillness that allows others to reveal themselves, situations to unfold, and direction to confirm itself without interference. Interruption is easy. Restraint is harder and more powerful. The ability to wait without disengaging is one of the clearest signals of maturity at this level. Pay attention to what drains you now. Fatigue is no longer primarily physical. It is contextual. Environments misaligned with your position exhaust you faster. Conversations without substance feel heavier. You are not becoming intolerant, you are becoming specific. Specificity protects capacity. Without it, influence diffuses. You may also notice that praise feels strangely empty when it arrives. Not because you reject it, but because it lacks relevance. Praise addresses identity. You are now engaged with function. Function does not respond emotionally. It responds structurally. This is why validation no longer satisfies, but clarity does. Nothing about this phase demands acceleration. In fact, acceleration here would weaken integrity. What is forming requires coherence between inner state and external engagement. That coherence is still calibrating. Let it finish. There will be no moment where someone announces completion. You will know it by the absence of friction where friction used to live. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming deliberate. Distance protects ego. Deliberateness protects outcome. The difference matters. What emerges next depends on your ability to remain grounded while carrying unseen weight. And so far you have. When alignment reaches this depth, movement no longer comes from desire. It comes from necessity. Not urgency, not impatience, but a quiet understanding that certain actions now must happen because not acting would create imbalance. This is a subtle but critical transition. Earlier phases asked you to wait, to stabilize, to observe. This phase asks you to respond, but without drama, without force, and without attachment to outcome. You may sense that indecision has decreased, even though information has not increased. That is not coincidence. At this level, clarity no longer comes from gathering more data. It comes from internal coherence. When your inner structure is ordered, choices reveal themselves naturally. What belongs with you no longer needs persuasion, and what does not belong requires no justification to be released. Decisions simplify because alignment eliminates unnecessary options. Blessed by His grace? Click Super Thank You and give $20 to spread His light. Your gift plants seeds that grow His kingdom. Be the blessing. This is also where neutrality becomes a strength. You are less reactive, not because you care less, but because you see further. Emotion no longer pulls you into immediate response. You allow situations to show their shape before you engage. This restraint can be misread by those who still equate reaction with power. Let them misread it. Power here is not expressed through speed, volume, or dominance. It is expressed through timing. Notice how conflict behaves around you now. It does not escalate the same way. Tension either dissolves or exposes itself quickly. This happens because coherence destabilizes chaos. Unstructured energy cannot linger near structured presence. You are no longer required to confront disorder directly. Your steadiness does that work quietly. This is not superiority. It is function. In this phase, your sense of role sharpens. You are no longer asking, "What do I want to do next?" The question has evolved into, "What is required of me now?" That shift marks maturity of purpose. Desire is personal. Requirement is structural. When you operate from requirement, ego steps aside naturally. Not through effort, but through irrelevance. You may also notice a change in how others approach you. Less probing, fewer tests, more precision. People speak more carefully or not at all. This is not intimidation. It is recognition of boundaries they did not know existed before. Boundaries formed not by defense, but by consistency. You trained the environment how to interact with you simply by remaining aligned. Silence becomes increasingly functional here. Not as withdrawal, but as calibration. You speak less because each word now carries consequence. Meaning condenses. You choose accuracy over expression. This can feel unnatural if you are accustomed to processing outwardly. But this phase asks you to process internally first, then act cleanly. There is also a growing awareness of what cannot be rushed. You understand intuitively that pressing forward too quickly would fracture what has just stabilized. Patience here is not delay. It is structural intelligence. You are allowing form to solidify so movement does not collapse it. This part of the path does not reward intensity. It rewards consistency. It does not elevate those who push hardest, but those who remain reliable under changing conditions. You have become someone the structure can lean on without reinforcement. That is why opportunities do not arrive inflated with urgency. They arrive neutral, waiting to be engaged correctly. You are not entering a louder life. You are entering a more exact one. One where fewer moves matter more. One where presence outweighs performance. One where alignment does the work repetition used to do. Remain composed. Remain precise. The ground beneath you is no longer shifting. It is setting. As the ground sets beneath you, Something subtle but decisive begins to change in how outcomes unfold around your presence. Results no longer feel distant or hypothetical. They feel near, conditional on alignment rather than effort. This is the phase where cause and effect tighten. What you say, what you withhold, where you step in and where you step back, each choice now travels further than before. Not because you intend it to, but because your position has stabilized enough to carry consequence. You may sense that improvisation no longer feels appropriate. Earlier stages allowed flexibility through trial and error. Here, movement prefers intention. Not rigidity, but purpose. Actions taken without clarity feel heavy. Actions taken with clarity feel almost self-propelling. This contrast is new, and it teaches you quickly. You become less tolerant of scattering your energy because you can feel when momentum is being diluted. This is also the stage where accountability becomes internal rather than enforced. You do not need reminders. You do not need oversight. You feel misalignment immediately as a kind of internal resistance. Not guilt. Resistance. It signals that something does not match the trajectory that is forming. This internal feedback is not punishment. It is orientation. It keeps you on axis without external correction. Pay attention to how others respond when you pause. Previously, pauses invited interruption. Now, pauses create space. People wait. Conversations hold. Situations breathe before moving forward. That shift indicates something important. Your timing is now being respected even when unspoken. Respect for timing is one of the clearest markers of functional authority. You may also notice that outcomes are no longer dramatic. They are clean. Resolutions arrive without friction. Conflicts lose interest in escalating. Progress occurs without the emotional spikes you once associated with success. This can feel anticlimactic if excitement was your reference point. But this neutrality is not emptiness. It is efficiency. Systems prefer outcomes that do not require recovery. This phase also introduces a different relationship with uncertainty. Not elimination of the unknown, but comfort within it. You do not need full visibility to move correctly. You need alignment. When alignment is present, uncertainty stops being a threat and becomes context. You adjust within it rather than resist it. There is a growing sense that you are being trusted with weight rather than watched for mistake. That trust is quiet and it assumes competence. No one announces it because doing so would weaken it. Instead, responsibility is implied. Spaces are left open for you to occupy if and when appropriate. Nothing is forced. Everything is waiting. Resist the temptation to interpret every opening as instruction. Some spaces exist to test discernment, not initiative. Knowing when not to move becomes as important as knowing when to act. This balance protects integrity. It ensures that motion remains deliberate rather than reactive. Your identity is no longer the focus here. Function is. Titles, labels, recognition, all secondary. What matters is whether movement remains clean, whether alignment holds, and whether presence continues to stabilize rather than disturb. So far, it has. This phase does not end with a revelation. It ends with readiness. You do not feel finished. You feel prepared. And preparation is quieter, steadier, and far more reliable than arrival. Readiness brings with it a new form of restraint, one that is no longer learned but embodied. You are not holding back because you are uncertain. You are holding steady because you understand scale. Scale changes everything. What once could be corrected with effort now requires foresight. What once could be repaired with intensity now depends on sequencing. This is where maturity stops being visible and becomes structural. You may notice that your sense of identity has quieted. Not diminished, quieted. You no longer need to reinforce who you are through contrast or opposition. You do not define yourself against resistance. In fact, resistance barely registers anymore unless it threatens coherence. Your sense of self is no longer built through reaction. It is sustained through alignment. That internal silence is not emptiness. It is confidence without display. This phase refines your relationship with control. Earlier, control meant managing outcomes. Now it means managing conditions. You understand that forcing direction compromises durability. Instead, you adjust variables: timing, placement, engagement. You let outcomes emerge from structure rather than pressure. This changes the quality of everything you touch. Movement becomes cleaner. Resolution becomes quieter. Success becomes less visible but more lasting. There is also a heightened awareness of long arcs. You think less in terms of immediate result and more in terms of continuity. What you initiate now is measured by how well it holds after you step away. That shift signals leadership without declaration. True influence designs systems that survive presence. Anything that collapses without constant reinforcement was never aligned to begin with. Pay attention to how patience feels different now. It no longer feels like waiting. It feels like timing. There is an internal sense that some things are already secured, even if not yet expressed. This assurance is not optimism. It is structural confidence. You sense that the sequence will unfold if left undisturbed. Your role is not to push it forward, but to prevent distortion. At this level, distraction becomes the primary threat, not failure. Failure can be corrected. Distraction fractures coherence. You may feel an increasing intolerance for irrelevant engagement. Not from arrogance, but from awareness. Time misallocated now has visible costs. You can feel the misalignment instantly. That sensitivity is not something to suppress. It is guidance. You are also less tempted to explain your restraint. Those who understand do not require explanation. Those who do not would misinterpret it anyway. Silence here is not avoidance. It is containment. Containment protects direction. And protection is a responsibility that arrives when value is confirmed. What is notable in this phase is how little effort it takes to remain centered. Earlier, balance required intention. Now it feels native. This indicates that alignment has moved from behavior into structure. You are not acting aligned. You are aligned. Nothing is being announced yet because nothing needs to be. Announcement would introduce noise at the exact moment precision is required. What is coming next does not arrive through escalation. It arrives through inevitability. When alignment holds long enough, movement becomes unavoidable. You are not approaching a climax. You are approaching integration. Integration is quieter than resolution. It does not signal itself. It simply functions. Remain steady. The final adjustment is not ahead of you. It is happening within you now. Integration does not feel like achievement. It feels like arrival without emphasis. There is no surge of emotion, no moment demanding recognition. Instead, there is a steady clarity that settles into place, as if something that was always meant to fit has finally locked into position. You are no longer preparing for responsibility, you are operating from it. That difference is subtle but absolute. At this stage, the need to interpret what is happening fades. Not because nothing is happening, but because interpretation has finished its role. You no longer need signs to reassure you or language to frame your direction. Your movement has become self-confirming. What aligns strengthens you. What does not quietly falls away. This is not detachment from life. It is synchronization with it. You may notice that the environment responds to you with less friction than before. Things do not necessarily become easier, but they become clearer. Obstacles define themselves quickly. Opportunities reveal their cost up front. There is less ambiguity, less emotional drag. This is not luck. It is coherence at work. When inner structure aligns fully, the external world stops confusing you with options that were never viable. The most important shift here is internal. You are no longer waiting for permission to proceed. Not because you rejected authority, but because authority is no longer located outside of you. Your judgment has become dependable. Your restraint is no longer effortful. Your timing is less reactive, more exact. This is what it means to be positioned rather than elevated. Elevation is visible. Positioning is effective. What you carry now is not superiority, but responsibility without noise. You understand that presence itself influences outcomes, that awareness keeps you measured. You do not overstep. You do not vanish. You operate where you are needed and remain quiet where you are not. This balance is rare, and it is why the sequence unfolded the way it did. Anything faster would have fractured it. There is no call here to celebrate. There is also no warning to guard against loss. Integration does not feel fragile. It feels settled. The urgency that once surrounded your growth has dissolved, replaced by calm momentum. You are not chasing alignment anymore. You are maintaining it. Maintenance is less visible than pursuit, but infinitely more powerful. You may look back and realize that the most important shifts happened without witnesses. No announcement marked the transition. No single moment declared completion. And that is precisely why it holds. What forms quietly tends to last. What arrives loudly often fades just as fast. This is where the story pauses. Not because it ends, but because it no longer needs narration. You are moving within the structure you were shaped to occupy. What happens next will not require explanation. It will require presence. And presence, now, is something you carry naturally.